set?
Hold on, I just don't remember what the password is. I'm gonna look it up.
You mean for online?
621410?
For YouTube,
Oh, for YouTube.
yeah. No, I have it on here.
You're showing your age now.
Is me? I know, I am. Oh. I know a new decade.
What would refer to you as PB? Is it Mr. Villain Chair?
Mr. Chair, I'll chair the meeting tonight.
Or?
Yes. Hey, you.
Yeah, just figured.
There's Heidi.
Heidi's on, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Crown. I'm the Vice Chair of the Millis Finance Committee.
Hello, my friends.
Hello. I'll be presiding over tonight's meeting since our Chair, John Lohr, is out of the country at this time. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:03 on Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. I'd like the members of the committee to introduce themselves first, starting on my far left.
Pete Berube.
Joyce Boyardi.
Mark Johnson.
Brett Hausler.
And online, we have Heidi Gilmore.
There's no volume for us.
Yeah, I am not hearing anything.
I think the audio.
Oh, you guys are muted, it looks like.
Yeah.
How about that? Are we good now?
That's perfect.
All right. Heidi, I introduced you, Heidi, so you're all set. All right. Tonight, we're going to start off with finance offices and budget presentations, and I guess, Jody, you've got that information for us tonight?
I do.
All right. So welcome to the meeting.
Thanks. Welcome and take it away, right?
Exactly.
You guys look like you're a few members short, but
Yep,
that's
we-
okay. We
yep.
have Mike running the show over there. See that? That's great. Yes, so I have oversight. This is just for the benefit of the new members. We are, actually, so it's Brett and, forgive me, what's your name?
Mark?
Me?
Me?
They're, say it again?
Mark Johnson.
Mark, perfect. Thank you, Mark. Good to see you again. So I have oversight of the finance team, which is made up of the accounting team as well as treasury, collections, and assessing. So I will be here representing all of those budgets. We'll start with the finance director, accountant staff, which is comprised of a team of three. You will see within salaries, the only thing in here is contractual increases, expenses. The major change down here is that we
Excuse me.
are.
Oh, you got it there. Okay, good, because we don't have a copy of that, so thank you for putting it up. I'm sorry.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you put it
Excellent.
up. Okay, I'm sorry. Amanda just put it up. All right.
Yep, and that is to no fault of Amanda's. That was all me, in terms of getting that to you guys at this late juncture. So my apologies on that. So again, contractually, we're looking at increases for salaries in that area. The major change is really just a money movement within the larger budget, the broader budget. Auditing services were typically under the purview of the town administrator's budget, but it really belongs a bit more under my purview just because I manage the whole audit process, so it makes sense to have checkpoints and approval processes for the different points of the audit. So that moved from the TA's budget under mine, and everything else is pretty static. The only other increase is in consulting services. From time to time, we have the previous finance director come in and assist with some major reporting that our office is responsible for. So I anticipate that being level funded from the previous year. Other than that, there's really no other changes to our budget overall.
And Jody, are you expecting any significant operational things this year? Are there any special audits or anything that has to be done?
No, not for the accounting department. Nope, I will say though, on the audit front, we did a lot of negotiating in the last 6 to 9 months with regards to that. We had an RFP that we submitted, request for proposal for our auditing services. So for those of you that are familiar, we actually engaged with the new auditing firm who actually just completed our FY '25 audit in record time. Really happy to communicate that out. They did a phenomenal job. It was a team effort across the school finance operations as well as the towns. Multiple hands taking part in that, and it was really great. So all that said, why that's relevant is we have saved money doing so as well, to the tune of about $15,000. So that's really a big win for us, and those savings go on through FY '28. We're going to be able to level fund this line item for the next 2 years, which is pretty amazing. So.
Great, thank you. Anybody
Sure.
have any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Real quick, Jody, on the audit, any findings or areas for improvement that were recommended?
There actually were no findings, relevant or material, as the auditors say. The
Great.
only thing that they brought to our attention had to do with the school lunch account balance, which they typically want to make sure that they're under a certain number of months of operational expenses. And so Dr. Mulaney has been all over that, kind of looking through that, and has a plan to address the spend, to spend it down within a 3-month window, 3-month operational reserve, if you will. But other than that, we're doing great. You know, obviously we can continue to share best practices and improve as we go, but no material findings.
That is great to hear, and will those results be shared with?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, I just notified the select board today, so we're in the process of working through having our auditors come in as they historically have to present, you know, in front of the select board at an upcoming meeting. So I just extended that that offer today to the select board members, and so I'm just kind of waiting to hear when that will be scheduled. But yes, audited financials will be available on the website as soon as we've had the review at a broader level.
That is terrific to hear, and I would encourage the chair to invite that team to come to the tri-board.
Well, that's fantastic. I think it's a good idea. Jody, could you arrange for that?
Sure.
Okay, so why don't we plan on that? That'd be our request.
And I just
Okay,
had
got it.
Yes.
through the chair. Jody, what were you saying about the lunch? Was it salaries that needed to be spent down?
No, it's, there's a school lunch account that essentially is a special fund that is set aside for that purpose. And I'm not an expert on the comings and goings of that particular account, but there are statutory requirements for what that should look like. And so we have a little bit more money in it than they would like us to have in it, which is not a bad thing. But there is a plan that the superintendent has to be able to spend that down within a certain time frame to kind of be within the threshold that it should be. And I know that's pretty vague.
No, but spend it down on what?
Best answer that, but yeah.
On food? Spend it down on food or spend it?
The school lunch account, yes.
Okay.
So there'll be a lot of extra cakes and things
Yes.
like that, yeah.
Parfaits.
Speaking,
That's hot off the press, so like I said, we've brought all of that sort of up, but just to answer very candidly your question, that was the only thing that was brought to our attention, and again, it was not material, it was just more of a, hey, just so you know, and we're like, yep, we do know, and we have a plan.
thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, we can move on.
Okay, we'll move on to the assessor budget. So, this budget here, we have contractual increases in salaries, no staffing changes or anything like that. And then moving down to expenses, again, we have nominal increases with our software cost. We have Vision is our assessing software, and as part of last year's budget process, we moved any department-specific IT-related things specific to that, that department only, to that department's budget. So you'll see the history there in 2025, there was a zero spend in that account. It's not a new software, it just was in a different budget line item, and we're just continuing that on through 27. And like I said, a very nominal change there. Increase in annual pricing with dues and subscriptions, that's our professional associations. Again, marginal cost. And then the increased per inspection fee for, we have two vendors for this. We have Vision and our RRC, and they do our commercial property valuations as well as our personal property valuations. So that being said, again, that covers about 175 inspections every year, so that was just a nominal increase there as well.
And
Mike, you might have the same question around anything going on with the assessing department and that team. The answer is yes. As you recall, last year at town meeting, we voted in some funding to support our reevaluation. The town of Millis will be in a reevaluation year in fiscal '27 and fiscal '28. So typically what that means is that we have a review with the Department of Revenue that comes in and makes sure that all of our valuation data is full, fair market value, it's accurate. Sometimes they look for different things. They will also come back with different findings. So often we'll take findings from the year before and make any adjustments or tweaks. We've had no material, very relevant findings in previous years, that would make us change anything that we're doing in any dramatic way. So we're going to continue business as usual there. And continue to stay on top of our inspections as we should.
And you did answer my question. Are we on triennial or are we every 5-year reassessments?
5 years.
5 years? And when is the next one due? Is that in 2000?
It's going to start in FY '27.
27.
It's a 2-year process,
Okay.
so it will be '27 and '28.
So is there any money for that in here?
Yep, so last town meeting, we secured funding to handle it for both fiscal years.
So outside of this budget?
Correct.
Well,
Yep, it's in a special article that
Okay.
got voted at last town meeting. We
Okay.
set those funds aside in advance. So
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Sure.
Any questions?
And
Nope.
it's really a best practice to do that, so that we're not having big swings in the operational budget.
Right.
So it's about $59,000 for the reeval that happens every 2 years, for over a 2-year period every 5 years. So again, that money is set aside in that frequency.
So for those who are unfamiliar with the process, the assessors go out some towns every 3, sometimes every 5. They do a reassessment, a physical reassessment of the properties. If they can get into the properties, they do. If they can't, they assess it from the outside in order to take in any increases in valuation and any changes to properties and things of that nature that would cause for a reassessment of the value of that property. All right, there being no other questions on that, we can move forward to the next.
Okay, let's move on to the treasurer collector. So treasurer collector, again, we have contractual increases with regards to the salary portions, and there's really not a lot of changes besides, the change in cost to do business on the expense side. The only equipment that we have that's the significant portion down there at $10,700 is a postage machine that we lease, as well as a mail and envelope stuffer, a letter stuffer that we lease from a company. Our treasurer collector has done their due diligence over the years to get the best price. It's a 3-year lease. This is pretty standard, and it covers, the service agreement, et cetera, cleanings, and any service calls that might be needed throughout. The other advantage of a postage machine that, again, we can start to look across additional departments, but the majority of the Veterans Memorial Building, so the town hall offices leverage this postage machine, so they'll budget separately for it. And the postage, as you see a few lines down, you actually preload money on the machine as postage, and you actually get a reduced rate on your stamps. So that's a nice way to do things, especially when we're mailing things in bulk, tax bills, etc. So again, I'm comfortable with the contracts as they are, but we'll continue to do our due diligence and review to make sure we're being efficient, economies of scale, all of the things that, departments aren't having onesie-twosie contracts, when we could kind of bring those together. So we'll continue to look at those types of things.
So I take,
But other than that, there's really not a lot of changes there. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
okay, I take it you've looked at contracting that type of work out, especially for the 2 or 3 or 4 mailings a year?
Yeah, so we have, I haven't specifically yet, but that is on my list of things to do. In previous roles that I've held, we did use a contracted service for that. We're actually going to be doing some things specifically to reduce printing costs with the current systems that we have in place. So it's kind of same but different it's not about mailing, I'm gonna address that question, address that sort of review down the road. Not for this fiscal year at this moment, but yes, it will be on my radar. The other part is we do have some system capabilities that we're taking advantage of to stop printing, say, advice notices for, employees' paychecks, so that we can just have all those things online. So it's definitely been an incremental process where we can start to chip away some of these hard costs.
Good. Any questions? No questions, we can move on to the next.
The only thing I do want to mention, because we just talked about budget, just to be clear, there are no above-level service or capital requests from these departments. I just didn't want to skip over that, but there are none for this year.
Okay. And any other budget items that you have tonight?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Any final questions?
There's planning board, if you had any questions for her, I do have that.
Oh, yeah,
Planning board.
the planning board.
I'm
Anything,
going to stay on the call, so whatever anybody needs, I will be here.
anything that you know specifically regarding the planning board, or that's not within your purview?
I do not have any additional details or additional context for the line items, no. Meaning the expenses, I do know that we help provide all of the salary information, so I'm confident with those figures on the upper portion of that spreadsheet. As far as their needs on the lower portion, it looks like are we level funded there?
It appears so, yeah.
Almost, about
Yeah.
$2,000.
Yeah.
I don't have additional context on that.
All right. Does
But
anybody,
I can certainly get it, that's not a
does
problem.
anybody have any questions regarding the planning board's budget?
No.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we have with respect to budgets, Amanda?
Just conservation, then?
Well, no, I know that, yeah, but
But no.
nothing out of the, okay. All right. And we're wishing Amanda a happy birthday today.
I know.
Yep. We've had cakes brought to here, we've had cookies brought here, and I understand there's going to be a big celebration at her house after.
That's if the kids can stay out, or no, actually, if dad can stay out. The
Yeah,
kids
right,
can.
exactly, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jody. All right, we have Conservation Commission tonight, and we have Mr. Stedman.
You want to do it, or you want me to?
Why don't you both go up there? Mr. Stedman, being a former member of this committee, we welcome you back, sir.
Thank you, good to see a few familiar faces.
Yeah, just a couple.
Some new faces.
Well, three, yeah, three.
Three tonight,
Three tonight.
3 mug shots.
yes.
The new members are better looking, frankly.
Love it now.
You want to start?
Sure. Well, we're here because we have an above-service request. Aside from that, it's level. We have one part-time assistant, Camille Stanley, who devotes 12 hours a week to the Conservation Commission, and 16 to the Planning Board and 4 to CPC. So that's the only resource we have other than the volunteers. Our budget, aside from the above-service request, is flat. Our spending is, we get $4,777 for expenses of printing, filings, advertising, and all that stuff, and that's level.
And do you receive any income from any permits or anything like that?
That's a good question, Michael. We do. When there is a notice of intent, then there is a fee set by the state. And it's split between the state. The portion that comes to the town goes into a special fund, the Conservation Fund, which can only be used for expenses in administering the act. There's a small balance in there. We're not getting many more fees because there's not a lot going on. So, yeah, our fees that are generated might be $5,000. And I think off the top of my head, there's about $40,000 in that fund. But in the event there's litigation, that's what that would be used for. So,
And I know in your budget request above level service, you want to retain an administrator or an agent.
correct.
So perhaps you can, when you do discuss that, maybe discuss, is there a possibility that that agent could be paid from some of that, since that's someone who's going to be enforcing the wetlands?
We did dip into that for a portion of Camille's salary,
Yeah.
so that we could fund the Conway study for $10,000. The funds that are there, we did have litigation years ago, and I know our chairman is really reluctant to tap into that. There are some pending things out there that might involve litigation. So with very little money coming into that fund, that would be, that'd be quite dangerous, and it'd be a one-time thing like we did before.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would say as far as that funding is concerned, you know, perhaps in a pinch, we could use some of that funding if needed, but I think as a planned budgetary expenditure, it probably wouldn't be prudent to base a regular, you know, hourly wage or salary for a conservation agent on that. And just to kind of take a step back and talk about the whole proposal for a conservation agent, it actually is quite amazing that the town has reached this point, 2026, and does not have any type of regular paid conservation agent. Every town around here does have, you know, sometimes it might only be 15 or 20 hours, and some towns have a full time. Over in Sherburne, for example, they have a 35-hour-a-week conservation agent for a relatively smaller town than Millis. So what we're really looking at, and I've had discussions with John for probably 2 or 3 years now, about the need to look at bringing on someone on some regular basis, not a full-time person by any stretch, but maybe in the 8 to 15 hour a week range, to basically keep the Conservation Commission informed of changes in law, keep them informed of any problems that are arising, to be able to address any violations or issues, to address any items regarding any projects going on in town where there's an encroachment on wetlands that they need the town's guidance on. Up until this point, the town has been very lucky to have a very highly skilled and dedicated Conservation Commission with people on it that actually have a lot of certifications and a lot of knowledge. But it's not a model that's sustainable going forward. So, you know, I've had discussions with the Select Board in regards to this. They're fully supportive of having some type of regular assistance, professional assistance to the commission. We have had some discussions with a couple of our neighboring communities about the possibility of having some sort of arrangement of shared services, similar to what we do with the animal control, sealers of weights and measures, and some other things we're actively looking at. We did do IT for a while. And whether some of that pans out or not, I think we need to set aside some funds in order to have that regular professional assistance there. I can't say exactly how many hours that's going to be. I think within 2 or 3 weeks, we'll nail down, you know, something more firm. It may be a little more time before we'd have anything worked out with a neighboring town, but like I said, even if it didn't, we would probably go out on our own and try to find someone who would be willing to, you know, come in, whether it be a day a week or 2 partial days a week, whatever someone's scheduled work, and on call for urgent situations. If we have an immediate complaint, it would be ideal to have someone local, maybe working for another town as well, that's available to come over, you know, on short notice. So, you know, I think there's a $40,000 placeholder in there. I would say that's probably at the high end, and it'll be somewhere less than that. But again, we wanted to kind of put the Finance Committee on notice that we're looking at this. We'll have, I think, a more solid number in a few weeks. Okay. We need to start getting that regular professional assistance in for the committee. Really, they're saddled with a lot, and we're very appreciative of all the work they've done up to this point. But it's not a model that I think we can continue to carry on for much longer.
Yes.
Thanks for diving in and sharing big picture. I want to pretend we didn't have the last 5 minutes. And I want to start at the 30,000-foot level, just for me, having little knowledge of the Conservation Commission and the work, and would love to, we have the justification, but scoping the role, what you hope to get out of it, you know, a year from now, the role's been in place. What are the expectations? And in that explanation, share a little bit more about why that isn't sustainable. I can assume, but just to paint the picture a little fuller for me. Yeah.
When the Wetlands Protection Act was implemented in the state in the 70s, the state devolved all of the responsibility to each and every town. So all 364 towns in Massachusetts have a Conservation Commission. And we are charged with administering and enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act. So any activity that happens within 200 feet of a river, 100 feet of a bordering wetland, falls within our jurisdiction. And we have a lot of authority within the law. Our commission is all volunteers. So if somebody has a project, the first step is they file a request for determination of applicability. That's whether or not the activity falls within our jurisdiction. That might even be somebody's taking down trees and clearing some land in a buffer zone. Or it might be they're doing a big development or a little development. And if it moves forward and it's within our jurisdiction, then there's a notice of intent. That carries fees with it, and we issue what's called orders of conditions. They can be as many as 70 orders of conditions on a big project like the Regency at Glen Ellen. Some of them are a lot smaller. So throughout the project, they have to comply with all of those orders of conditions, and when it's done. Then there is a certification of compliance, because a property cannot be sold if there's an open order of conditions. And one of the issues we have is there are a lot of orders of conditions that the property owner or the builder never came with a certificate of compliance. So then all of a sudden, somebody wants to sell the house and they can't because they don't have clear title. There's a big backlog of that. The two big projects have been smooth because we have Beta Engineering following up every month on the orders of conditions. And the builder pays for that. But on a smaller project, one house, two houses, even just an apartment complex within the wetlands, we have to do that ourselves, and frankly, we really don't do a very good job on that. Yeah. Three of the members work full-time, one works part-time, and a lot of these things have to happen during the week, and so we just don't get to them. That's the legal part of it. If you read the open space plan, the Conservation Commission is responsible for managing 23 properties in this town. We basically do zero. We don't have a budget for it, and we don't have anybody going out and looking at it. A couple of us have done a lot of work on that, and the Conway study pointed out some things to be done. We do have a volunteer who's taking care of Pleasant Meadow, and that's a big help. But the other properties, very little happens with them. We have open enforcement orders. We issued 2 of them this year. Again, we could do a better job on follow-up on those enforcement orders. We issued an order of conditions for the solar field at the old GAF plant that the state took exception to. So tomorrow, the state is coming, and those of us who can make the time at 11 o'clock tomorrow will meet with the state because they disagree with our decision to approve taking down 200 trees and replacing them with trees that will not grow too tall and shade the solar field. So those are a few things that we have. Camille has been the administrative assistant now for 17 years. That's the only continuity we have. We lose Camille, and the institutional memory is gone. And she is not a certified wetland scientist or professional. A couple of us have been through all the state training, but not everybody. Does that answer your question?
Tremendously, yes, thank you. And what I'm also hearing is that the scope of the role, and then, of course, the limited hours, I imagine, sure I'm not saying anything new, that you got to scale that accordingly, and that it seems like there's a lot to do up front, and then there's quite a lot to do on the back end, and it sounds like you've got a grasp on the whole. So I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to follow up a little bit on that, if I may, and John's pretty humble. I would say that he and the members of the Conservation Commission have been doing yeoman's work to keep things going as they have all this time. You know, I would point out that what they're seeking is a part-time position. There'd be no benefits. These folks do get, you know, paid fairly well because it's a highly technical job that requires a lot of expertise. You know, there's a market out there in Massachusetts, and there's a really going rate for these folks, and we are going to have to, you know, depending on how this is structured, we're going to have to work for, you know, a system that we can put together that'll work for Millis, and we're looking, again, someone between, you know, 1 to 2 days a week. We would gauge over time the need, you know, hopefully that would be sufficient with the, you know, working with Camille and working with an active commission. There's no question in my mind that there's a need for this. I have talked to a number of folks in town, including some builders, who said it would be helpful to have someone they could call and know that, you know, they're not bothering a volunteer. There's someone that's, you know, there available a day a week that they know will get back to them, and they're not intruding, and they're, you know, it's just a better system.
I think Millis has yet to be found.
They're finding us.
Our land costs have now gone up dramatically, and you're starting to see, you know, the average new construction house exceed something that I don't think the citizens of Millis figured would come this soon. So I think there's going to be a lot more work to be done by the Conservation Commission in the future. So this is a good beginning. I remember the days in a former town that I was in where we had a part-time assessor. They don't have a part-time assessor anymore. They have 2 assessors. So, you know, it reaches a point where you can't manage it by volunteerism, and you've done an excellent job. And yeah, I agree with you. You know, Glen Ellen alone was a massive project for a group of volunteers. So you've done a great job. And all the other ones, I think, you know, if you folks say that this is something you need, then I think we should all pay attention to that.
Yes. I question whether an 8-hour-a-week available day for somebody would be enticing. You know, to me, 2 days makes more sense, so that for a couple, I mean, part of me says, oh, let's keep the budget down, $20,000, 1 day a week, great. Realistically, I don't know that you're going to be able to find somebody who would work 1 day a week unless they have they work somewhere 4 days and they have an extra day. If it's something that you're going to be sharing eventually, that you're going to go to Medway, maybe? Do they have one? Oh, they do.
Yeah.
Who would
Every
we
town around here has one. It's just a question of,
Are
Do
they all
do have any-
full-time?
Do they have bandwidth? I mean, could they add? could
Right,
they
well,
add
are
a
they
day a
all
week?
are they all full-time?
It varies a little bit. Some of them are full-time, some of them are, 30 hours, and that's
So
what.
they could possibly
that-
give us a
that-
day.
That is where the possibility lies.
Well, I think the big thing is you're going to make a decision. As time goes on, you're going to see what you need. This is the beginning.
Well, it
see how
says,
it
it
works.
says 16 hours
Well,
here.
16 is
now
like kind of
it's-
the maximum request at this
Oh,
time. We're
right.
evaluating
Right
it.
now.
And like I said, it may, 8 hours would be infinitely better than the 0 they have now. But you're right, it may wind up, we may find out over time that it does require 2 days a week for a number of reasons, but I think we want to ease into this and try to find, something that'll fit for a local professional, that it's certainly not going to be for someone that's looking for full-time work.
Right.
It's someone that maybe already has a part-time position somewhere else and wants to add a little more, or is willing to do that extra so many hours a week on top of a full-time. And there are people out there that are willing to do that, but it's going to be a special situation, and that's what we're looking for.
Sure. Is there anyone on your commission that would be interested in a 2 days a week or a day a week? No?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I don't know who that would be.
Well, some of you are would be because of.
Not really.
Not really?
We don't have the
Even with all the
certifications to really
certifications
be able to
That's what he's saying, yeah.
delineate a wetland, for example.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned Glen Ellen. Glen Ellen was easy because the developer is paying,
Put everything in.
no, they're paying Beta.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, Beta to
Still,
come and
but you
review
had
it
to look
every
at
month.
it.
No,
And you had to know enough to know whether the information you got was true or not true. So
Yeah.
Well, there were also
Beta's-
I'll
some
still pat you on the back for that.
There were still things at Glen that you did have to address that happened after the fact.
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah.
No, if I can add two things. Of
course.
I've talked to both Sherborne and Norfolk. They both have 4 days a week for an agent.
Okay.
The one in Sherborne, Joyce Hastings, we worked with because she was the engineer on the improvement to the trails at Oak Grove before she took this job. And neither of those towns had had an agent. And both of them say they were absolutely swamped for the first 2.5 years. So, yeah, keeping a person busy is not going to be a problem.
Oh, I didn't think it would.
no.
I'm saying that I.
There's a
think-
lot of work.
Yes.
Also, our vice chair just joined us. I don't know if you want to add anything? This is Carol Hayes, who's the vice chair. I'm just a commissioner. So,
I think John did a wonderful job with the presentation. Sorry I'm late because I came from work. So, this is our problem. We aren't always available to the town residents and contractors who might have questions of us because some of us are working and, so it really helped the commission to function and give the best protection to the wetlands and protect our water quality if we had a full-time agent to do this.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else, anybody? I think you've got a,
But you're not looking for full-time now.
No, the current proposal is up to 16 hours a week, and then we're, like you said, we're going to kind of,
Baby step it.
we're going to look at it and determine over time what the full need is. So right now, it's 0.
Right.
So, like I said, anything will be infinitely better than the current situation, but I also agree with Mr. Stedman that, I don't think there'll be a lack of work, no matter what hours we put in there.
Not to belabor the issue, but if there's other towns nearby that have 4 days a week, have we reached out to those people to see if they would be interested in an additional, make it a full, 40 hours between them?
Yes, I have reached out. I've had some discussions with the administration in Sherborne next door, and there is some interest. And we're in discussions, but we haven't reached a point where I can give any definitive information to the board. But I think there's openness and opportunity there that we're discussing.
Yeah, it sounds like we can size it based on what we find. And then my second question was, how does Millis compare? It seems like Millis has a lot of wetlands. If Sherborne has 4 days a week, how does that compare to Millis if we're,
A larger town.
is that, well,
We have a lot of water here, that's for sure.
right, but do you foresee it being 4 times as many requests potentially as Millis? Like, just sizing wise, you guys would probably have a better idea of that.
You won't know till it comes.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the commission, but I will say, some of it depends on the amount of construction, the amount of disturbances that are occurring, not just the amount of wetlands, but if you have people doing projects all over the community that are within those buffer zones, which were talked about, that requires that extra level of effort. So it's almost like the level of development tied with how close that is to the wetland areas, that's gonna be the key trigger for how many hours we're gonna need from a person. And I think if we ease into this, within a couple years, we'll know what the full need is.
Right.
And we'll get to wherever we need to go.
Well, we'll also need to know because of the low-income housing going in, that if we end up.
We don't know
with one
about
of-
that yet.
Yeah, we
No.
don't know where that's gonna go, but that's another
Exactly what I'm
example of a
saying. I know
possible.
we don't know yet,
Yeah.
but I'm saying if it does happen, then there's wetlands there that would have to
I
be.
mean, both sites that were discussed, there's wetlands in both areas
Right.
currently, so.
I don't want to get down that road.
No, I don't want to shoot off in that
I don't
road,
wanna
it's a
get down
much
that
bigger
road.
issue.
Yeah, I'd rather
But-
keep it focused on.
But I would
right
say,
now.
I mean, that is an example of a type of project, but there are scores of projects, private projects.
Yep.
That are occurring that are near wetlands, and like was discussed earlier, sometimes the commission gets a complaint from a neighbor saying, my neighbor's doing something in the backyard, it looks like they're cutting down trees in the wetland, or they're doing this or that. And so sometimes there's a need for a fairly quick response, and, those are areas that the commission, responds to, but struggles with at times because of the timing and the availability. They're all volunteers,
Yeah,
so.
I don't think any of us are saying that it's a bad idea.
No.
I will add one other thing. Camille is a superstar. Without Camille, we'd really be dead in the water.
All right. Any other questions? I think you've done an excellent job of making the presentation, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for all your hard work. All right, next, Mike, I guess we've got an analysis of the preliminary draft of the town warrant.
Yes.
Pretty sparse warrant for a spring warrant, huh?
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Chair. We're trying to keep the warrants, for the spring warrants, at least in the 20s, and not in the 30s or 40s. I think my first town meeting here, we had 40-something articles, so we're trying to narrow those down and consolidate into something that makes sense. So I think the draft warrant, which the select board went over, and again, I'll stress, it's just a draft warrant, that the select board went over a few days ago. You have a copy of that. Again, it's rough in areas. There's a number of articles that are just there in title, and we need to fill in information. I would, I'll go through this.
You can just hit us with the ones that aren't.
Yeah,
that
so
you-
let me just
Ones
talk
that don't have
about-
any numbers yet, we can wait on that.
Yeah, so basically, Article 1, prior year bills, we don't have a list of those at this point, but we will in the next week or two. Article 2 is a standard article where we do any transfers within the current year's budget. If we need to transfer from one department to another based on additional needs that were unexpected in one department versus funds left over in another, we do, we're usually able to just do transfers from one department to another.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could interrupt, it seems like a good spot here. Do you know if and how overspent the snow budget is this year?
I do not have the exact number off the top of my head,
But we're sure it is.
but it is overspent.
Yeah.
But I will be talking with the finance director about that over the next few days, as well as the DPW director, to make sure we have that number. And also talking with the finance director about the best way to address that,
Understand.
either through an article, so that there always could be another, up until, the select board will sign this warrant on April 13th. So up until that point, we could add or remove articles. But we'll be discussing whether that'll be resolved through an article or through the recap, which we've done in the past as well. It really depends on the size
Thank you.
of the amount. But good question, and we will definitely be getting that information.
I think one thing just to point out when we're talking about that too is that State law says, if it does still, I think it still does, that whatever amount you put in your budget for a particular year, you have to at least put that much in the next year. So towns generally don't put large sums of money in the budget because they're going to have to repeat that in the next year.
You're forever stuck with it.
You're
So you
forever
can never
stuck
go
with it.
lower. You
Right.
can go higher, but you can never go
Right,
lower.
so a lot of times they figure it under, but anticipating that it probably would exceed that at some point.
You always have to anticipate there's a possibility you may need to find a few $100,000 in a bad winter
Right.
to make up that difference.
So it's not that they don't count on it, they just don't
If I may,
put it in there. Yes.
it's also noteworthy that it's one of the areas that you can overspend.
Yes,
So-
we can go
so
into the
you
red.
can overspend it. None of the other budgets you can, snow you can.
Yeah.
I believe it's,
Exactly,
it's unique.
It's unique, it is. It is the only budget that we can overspend without getting special permission from the Department of Revenue to overspend that account. So Article 3 is our annual budget for FY '27. Articles 4, 5, and 6 are our enterprise fund budgets. Article 7 is our consent article, which we include a lot of our regular business. It's split into 4 sections. The first has to do with changes to the salary plan and employee benefits within the personnel plan. The next is a special item we need to do in order for the Board of Health to be able to appoint any of its members to another town office or position.
And that's because statute doesn't allow.
Statute doesn't allow it unless we have that in there every year.
And on number 1, under Article 7, that would be if there are any changes to contracts or anything like that. with
Yeah, if the
employees.
select board would put forward, whether it's a COLA that, within the plan that might be similar to the COLAs that were negotiated in the contracts. It might be a benefit adjustment based on what's going on in the broader municipal world, local contracts, just so we're not punishing folks that aren't in the union. If the unions are generally getting a benefit, we always take a look at that to see if it's appropriate to also put that into the personnel plan.
Yep.
And really, there's only 3 or 4 people that are benefited, that are in the, in the personnel plan. Most of those folks are stipend employees or part-time employees that get paid through that. Article 3 is our revolving accounts, revolving funds. Right now, there's only 2 changes being looked at as part of that, and they're both within the Council on Aging. One is to increase the transportation fund, and this is just the caps, the limits of what they can spend. These aren't really appropriations because they generate these funds, but this is what they're allowed to spend out of those revolving funds. The COA Transportation Fund, they would like to increase from $5,000 to $7,500. And the COA Program Services Fund increase from $10,000 to $30,000. And we can explain that a little more going forward.
Can you just explain what the revolving fund is, for those who may not know?
So we have about 20 revolving funds, and so different departments bring in funds through different fees, permits, different revenue sources. And instead of them going into the general fund, they go into a special revolving fund that the departments can spend based on the needs within the departments and the funds they bring in. So they can't spend beyond whatever's available in those funds. So even if it says, say, fire alarm fund is 10,000, if they only have 5,000 in that line item, they can't spend more than 5,000. This just means if there is that amount, and they have that funds, and they need to expend those funds for legitimate purposes during that budget year, they can expend those.
So to some degree, it was established so that you would limit these enterprise funds and so forth from charging excessive amounts of money and then being able to spend it in whatever way they want.
Yeah, it's sort of like keeping, the whole idea of many of these fees is to cover the costs associated with the service or the fee. So it was the idea that these would be self-supporting, and they wouldn't be supported through the general budget. It'd be supported through the function through which they're getting these fees from the different departments.
And if we could, the school food service fund and the transportation fund, are those funded by external sources?
Yes, those are funds that come in through payments, special payments that that those funds receive, whether it's through charges, for transportation, certain charges related to food, those go into those accounts, and then they can pay for payroll and expenses out of those accounts.
I do
If
have
I
a,
may, oh, go ahead.
And
Yes,
No, go
and
ahead,
so
Jody.
Jody could
Oh, Jody,
explain-
go ahead,
could
Jody.
explain it in a little more
Oh, no, I
detail.
was just gonna say, just to piggyback on what Mike was saying, if you take the time to look up MGL Chapter 44, 53 and a half, that statute will also dictate all of the types of funds that are allowable under that particular statute. So not everything can be set up as a revolving fund. It's very particular to what the IRS allows, or the Department of Revenue allows. But the real major difference between revolving funds and the rest of the money that sits in our general fund is that each year after we do our spending and we're reviewing our accounts, all of the unexpended budgeted expenditures goes to free cash. So anything left over, we can do interdepartmental budget transfers to cover different areas when we close out our budget for a fiscal year. But the real distinguishing factor about revolving funds is that those don't close out to the general fund at the end of the year. Whatever balance is left in that fund remains. So for the COA Transportation Fund, if there's $5,000 in it at the end of the year, there's $5,000 in it at the beginning of the next fiscal year. So really what this does is just, this places a dollar amount threshold that is allowed to be set aside and set apart from other monies, like the general fund. So that's really the major difference, is that it's able to be rolled over year to year, as opposed to closing out with the rest of the general fund monies.
so the COA Transportation Fund and the COA Program Service Funds, one is 5,000, one's 25,000. That's in addition to the 10,000 that they're hoping to get for their transportation.
Driver wages. Yeah,
Driver
this is-
wages.
This is different than
This
that.
is-
Yep. And
okay.
As you notice, like, a good example would be like the Animal Control Shelter Fund. That's a gift fund, essentially. So if people give to a gift fund, there could be a maintenance fund, like for Oak Grove, that the select board accepts, gifts, into these particular funds for a stated purpose. That's really to keep those monies separate from rolling right into the general fund and kind of sweeping at the end of the year.
Great.
So no matter what those funds have at the end of the year, they can only keep the amount that's listed here.
No.
No,
No, the money would remain. These are really,
it would just.
The spending caps.
Oh, these are spending caps, I'm sorry.
That's,
Okay. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
that actually brings up a question that I've had, and I'm glad we're having the discussion, because these are not well-known as in-depth as you're describing it. When we say spend, over what period? Is that a one-time purchase? If a fund collects over, say, 5 years, $25,000, but it has a $5,000 spend limit, why don't they just stop?
$5,000 a year.
Why don't they just stop collecting fees and use the fund?
Right, so these aren't well, it depends which fund we're talking about, right? So they are designed and set up for a specific purpose. The Animal Shelter Fund would be viewed much different than, let's say, the Stormwater Management Fund, or that COA Transportation Fund. The spirit of what they're used for is gonna be very different. But the idea of it remains, and again, the core component to kind of think about with these is, regardless what they're being used for, we continue to evaluate, does this fund make sense? Does this revolving account make sense? And we do that every budget cycle. And if they don't make sense anymore and they don't serve the purpose they were intended, then we encourage them to be closed out, right?
Sure.
Or we just won't renew their cap.
Sure.
But, we work with department heads to make those best determinations. Some are just legacy. People inherited them and don't really know what to do with them. So we periodically review that to make sure that they're still in line with our business goals.
Okay.
That being said, each year, like, again, as they're being actively used, people recognize, you know what? Anne Marie, our COA director, is a perfect example. The transportation fund, has had a greater demand. And so she's looking at the idea that, okay, well, this fund needs to be $7,500 now, because of just the activity in and out of it. So they get driver fees, let's say $2 a ride, it gets put into this fund, it accumulates over time. So that mechanism may work for a season, but then we need to augment the process a little bit.
Right, but just for my clarification, because I'm a dummy, If the recreation revolving fund, for instance, collects $10,000 worth of fees over a 3-year period, and they don't spend that much, you know, we're talking about, these revolving funds have spend limits, they don't have collection limits. And so I'm curious as to, at what point are they allowed to spend, you know, what is the duration of that spend limit? Is it one time? Is it it's not forever, is it annual?
These are annual.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the purpose of this article is to reestablish that spending limit for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay.
So for example, in your case, if you say that, hey, the recreation team has brought in a whole lot more than we intended, and you know what, let's increase the spending limit in the next fiscal year to $50,000, because that cap at 25 isn't suiting our needs anymore. That's really the reason for the reevaluation every year, and this is a standing article for that exact reason. And quite frankly, like I said before, I mean, we've talked about this with recreation over time, over the last few years, what model makes the most sense, right, for that particular
Yep.
department?
Yep.
And so those are the conversations that I get to have with our department heads to say, you know, what particular model might work best for your department and the way that you operate. 53.5, this particular statute, is just one of 3 types of revolving funds that even exist. There are 53D revolving funds, there are 53E revolving funds that all have little nuances with their statutory requirements. This is the most common, but again, you know, depending upon what we're trying to achieve, we can put the best mechanism in place.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, at some point, will there be narratives that accompany these spending limits? Or is it just a number?
It's just a number.
As far,
We-
did you say, is there a narrative?
Yeah, so for the Historical Commission Fund, $12,000 is the spending limit, and there's a plan for X, Y, and Z to use those funds, or does that not exist?
Typically, and Mike, you can back me up on this one, typically for this article, it's really just establishing a spend threshold. But I would be remiss to think that in these particular cases, like the COA director I know for sure has called out these 2 particular funds in her budget narrative, so you'll see that context there. Likewise, Recreation has some context for the narrative around, you know, what they might have, or the stray animal fund. Like, those are just ones off the top of my head.
But they won't be in this article.
No,
They won't
yeah,
be in
I
this
mean,
article.
the only,
Would not be in this
yeah,
article, that's
so-
the correct answer.
so
But there
basically.
is information available, just in a different.
Yeah, certainly if the committee would like information on any one of these, we can provide it, but usually what happens is this is an article that's done every year, recurring business, so unless there's a change in the amount, we don't usually spend too much time on it. Like Jody said, like with the COA, I think there's some discussion of that within her budget request, because these are being requested to be adjusted, but these all have a history. We don't usually go into the history with it every year, but
And they're
again,
not taxpayer funds.
they're not funds from property
From
taxes.
taxation.
These are usually from fees.
Yes, not from taxation.
yes.
Yep,
Mr. Chair?
Get fees or gifts or other means like that.
yep, yes.
To your knowledge, Jody, are there any funds that possess a cash balance that greatly exceeds the fiscal year expenditure limit?
No, in fact, the only one as of right now, that we're looking to make a change around, Mike has them highlighted here, is the COA Transportation Fund and the Program Services Fund.
Thank you.
But there's nothing on my radar, by which any of these funds are overspent or in jeopardy of not being able to do what they need to do because they're spending.
No, my concern is, do they have an endowment? Are they
I think-
well over their expenditure
He's
limit?
asking, like, the fire alarm fund, does it have 300,000 in it?
Something
And it's
like
only
that.
10,000 they can
Something like
spend.
I see what you're saying. You know what, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but I do know that these particular funds are not extravagant where they would have caught my attention in a way that would make me, you know, drill down really deep.
If you find that, please,
It's a good prudent thing to look
Yeah.
at. I do get a report monthly.
yeah, thank you,
But just, again, I'm just not off the top of my head, do I think that any of these balances are anywhere near that.
thank you.
All right. Mike, on the next article, we do have the Community Preservation Group coming in, our
Okay.
next meeting, so why don't?
Yeah, I just ignore the numbers that are in there, those aren't not
Yeah,
the
we
updated
can wait for
numbers.
them to explain
Yes.
these next week, so you don't have to get into that one.
All right.
Or I guess there's a couple others, so.
So I'll jump to Article 8 then, and that is our capital article. I think you will see the chair of the capital committee coming in to meet with you. I believe they were hoping to schedule a meet with you on the 8th, April 8th.
Yeah, I think
So 2 weeks from
Is that what we
tonight.
have, Amanda? Yeah, yeah.
So they'll talk about these in more detail. You can see they're classified by department. I think the one thing I want to really point out here is that you'll see the total at the bottom, but it's important to note that of that 1.9 million, approximately 1.3 million would be coming from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Funds.
Right, yep.
So, just to touch upon these real briefly, because I'd probably defer these for the most part to when the chair of the capital committee comes in. We have, from the DPW, we have a storage trailer. The largest project we have, which is approximately 1.3 million, is the meter replacement program. So again, that's an important program that many towns are doing. There's a lot of advantages to it.
Yeah, and the fire chief came in and discussed his, and the library discussed theirs.
Theirs,
And the police
police.
discussed theirs.
And I'm sure the school will discuss theirs when they come before you. And on the town buildings, I think these are pretty much self-explanatory, but the parking area here was redone when this building was renovated in 1998, 1999. You can see that it's starting to show wear with the cracks and some potholes and crumbling around the edges. We did get a quote for $250,000 to really mill and repave the parking lot and do some of the repairs that are needed. I think that's the largest general fund item on the list as far as cost. And this building, even though it does have some HVAC issues, it's a good building, it's got good bones. I think the town made a great decision by saving this building and renovating it back in the late 90s. But there are pieces of the building now, almost 30 years later, that need a little TLC. And there's a lot of the flooring, like, for example, this room, this is original flooring it's almost 30 years old. And we have also, you tell in the hallways, we do have some damaged flooring. And most importantly, the stairwells. Some of the stairwells need new treads. So that represents the $75,000 request for the flooring of this building. The next item, and you see this most years, this is asking for authorization to borrow through a lease for a new police cruiser. And for clarity, the funding for this is actually within the police budget. So this is just a borrowing authorization. We have to do this separately because this requires a 2/3 vote specifically for a borrowing authorization. But the actual appropriation will occur within the police budget. Article 10, we're looking at putting some additional funds in the Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical School debt account. For those who may not know, the Tri-County has a $200 million school project, which is ongoing.
200, I thought it was,
200 million?
isn't it 300?
I'm sorry.
90 or something, wasn't it?
280.
280, yeah.
It's a third of a billion. It's
100 million here, 100 million there. The project is well on its way. We did have the majority of the towns approved it, so we're required to pay into it. At the time, there was a debt exclusion question that the select board put in front of the voters. It came up 22 votes short of approval. The select board, at least up until this point, have decided not to put it back before the voters. It may go back before at some point, but I don't think anytime real soon. Speaking with the select board, I think the short-term plan is to try to fund this through available free cash for the short term, understanding that there's been a lot of asks of the public for major projects in the town recently, not the least of which is the major renovation in addition to the middle high school. So this will be a sum of money, and we'll have more information on the specifics of that proposed amount in the coming weeks.
And that amount is based on our attendance,
That's
student
correct.
attendance each year.
That's correct, and the attendance, I believe, is dropping slightly next year. So the amount of our debt assessment will fluctuate up and down every year based on that.
So and we pay two things, we will be paying two things. We're paying both for the students that attend and for the construction costs of the new school. So they're two different budget items.
Right, so student tuition and capital project debt.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may make a comment, I don't know if it'll lead to a question or not, but I would recommend that we all pay very close attention to Article 9. I see it as somewhat controversial in the sense that we are now paying for what I see as a budgetary item out of free cash, which we have always been,
You mean Article 10?
yes, I'm sorry, Article 10, reluctant to do. It's not a generally accepted good practice to pay for budgetary items out of free cash. It may be because, you know, it's undefined, and I don't even think the bond or the school is completed yet, and there, you know, there's a gray area as to when that'll happen, and there are different opinions on it, and I think we ought to pay attention to it, educate ourselves on it, so that we can have good discussion and have a vote on it, obviously.
Yeah, I think the problem was that this town voted down approval of the Tri-Valley Vocational new school, and at the same time, I think there was some confusion with the voters because they voted down the ability to take this outside of the budget and pay for it with free cash. So it has to be brought up again at some point so people understand that, okay, we didn't have a choice. It's built, and we have to pay for it, but the better move is not to pay for it out of free cash, as you're saying. It should be voted in a way that it comes in a different fashion than coming out of free cash, because at some point, we're not going to have the free cash to continue to pay this, because that amount is going up. As the construction continues, we're not paying for the full construction right now, because it's just in its beginning stages. But at some point, the full bond will be issued, and then will be assessed based on the final value of the project and the amount of students that we have each year. So the amount we pay now is going to be, I think, substantially, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's substantially lower than it's going to be in its final stage, depending on attendance.
Well, I would say part of the issue is the fluctuation. Because of the way the formula works for the capital assessment, this amount could fluctuate wildly from year to year. And that's another part of the problem of putting it within the annual budget. And I agree that this is not an ideal long-term solution. I think this is really being able to cover the cost during construction and then making a final determination within a couple years.
Yep.
If we're going to have to try to roll it into our base budget, which certainly could have consequences for our current operations, or bring it back to the public at some point for another request. In a clear way, now that the project is real, and we'll have, I think, a very clear message on what the cost is going to be based per student. I mean, it'll always fluctuate throughout the life of the bond on how many students, based on how many students that we're sending to Tri-County.
Right.
Refresh my memory, wasn't there monies that were put towards this program, the Tri-County, weren't there monies that were going to go elsewhere that ended up rolling over into an account for the Tri-County?
Well, we did establish an account
Right.
prior to town meeting, so there are some funds remaining in that account.
Okay.
So this is an addition to that account. I think what we're seeking here is to put an amount in this account which actually exceeds our current assessment.
Okay.
So that it's sort of like a special capital account for this for a number of years.
And for the-
But again, it's not a permanent solution.
And other than free cash, where would it come from?
It would have to come from the general
budget.
budget.
Just the general budget.
Which again
Cut from other
unless we
things.
have a large
Then other things
surplus,
would have to be
it would
cut.
have an effect on the services we could offer the
Mr.
town.
Chair.
Yes.
I think there's another option, and it may be a combination of everything that's just been mentioned, but there is new growth. And new growth could be dedicated, a certain percentage of that to pay this debt down. I don't know what the new growth number is, and, maybe you do, or maybe Jody knows, and that number changes all the time too, but you chip away at it perhaps where you're doing a combination of new growth dedicated towards a bill and free cash dedicated to the remainder.
The only issue, Pete, though, is under Prop 2.5, we're limited to 2.5%, and that's all we can spend and raise in taxation. However, there are a lot of other things that come outside of 2.5. And I think if we try to do this with new growth, we're using new growth for a lot of other things right now and go toward these extra things that go above and beyond. For instance, almost every budget that we see in here for wages, they're more than 2.5 because there are extras that are added on contractually. So it's a possibility, but I think the better solution, as you mentioned early on and talked about the seriousness of this, is this at some point has to come outside of the general budget. It's not meant to be in the general budget. It was never thought to be in the general budget. It's just the way the vote went. It was voted negative and negative. And I think if the people finally see what it is, that we're bound to pay for this, so let's figure a best way to pay for it, I would say, that's probably the better way. But again, you make a good point. I just think new growth we don't have enough.
I haven't taken a position one way or another. I just think that there's a lot of discussion. This is a very serious article.
Yep.
And it will continue to be. There's not going to be solved tonight, and it's not going to be solved in this town meeting. And it's we've kicked the can on the issue on how to fund it, and,
Well, we had our own school to build.
correct.
No,
I-
that was,
yep,
and that took the
100%.
forefront, you know
totally
that, right? All right, Article 11, I take it you don't have much to say on that?
Yeah, so that was, the select board had a meeting on Monday. There was some discussion on that, so I have no further details at this point. We'll certainly have probably more information for you on this in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'd rather not get into speculation, we'll wait till
I
you have something
can't
solid.
speculate.
May I ask a
It's a
question?
placeholder right now.
Yes.
And you, please don't answer it if you think it's speculation, but what do you foresee the town would be voting on? Is it choosing a site? Is it choosing doing anything? What is it?
I believe if the board decides to move forward with anything at this time, it would be a vote to transfer a portion of a parcel of land to Millis Housing for the purpose of constructing affordable housing.
Thank you.
That's about as detailed
This
as I
was
can
brought
get.
up briefly at a tri-board meeting, I think about a year and a half or 2 years ago, so, yep.
So Articles 12 and 13 are community preservation articles. The first one is for the appropriation of $200,000 for an affordable housing project at 1178 Main Street through the Metro West Collaborative Development. So this is a special program the state supports. One of the components of these projects is a requirement that the town have some financial support for this type of specialized affordable housing. This is a little different than the affordable housing when you hear like a developer coming in for a regular 40B and they call it affordable housing. This is a little different because these types of affordable units are based upon how much income someone makes. So it is a different type of affordable housing. So usually it doesn't exceed 30% of a person's income. Where generally, if you have someone is renting apartments through or selling homes through a regular affordable housing, it's at 80% of the median cost. It's not based on your income, so it's a very different program.
No, they'll discuss it with us next
Yeah.
week.
So Article 13 is, again, $12,000 from the Community Preservation Open Space Reserve Fund for the Millis High School baseball scoreboard project. I think everyone may see the scoreboard when you come in here. For the softball, it's a similar type of structure. So they're seeking those funds through the Open Space Community Preservation Fund. Article 14, just to give a little background on this, last year, FEMA did its new flood maps. They're supposed to do those every so often. I think it's been like 15 years since they've done the maps. They did the maps in Millis, and for the most part, they were not problematic, but there's one area in town that their flood maps caused some major issues for some properties along sections of Route 109 in our that in our commercial industrial areas, and that we feel are incorrect. There is an appeal process the town can take as part of this, and we've had discussions with MEMA and FEMA in regards to this, and they're supportive, and they think, you know, we would have a case. But at the same time, they require that the town go through this process, and the town would have to pay for the study. So the $120,000 represents the cost of a hydrologic and hydraulic model of Bogastow Brook, Great Black Swamp, and certain tributaries in order to define the 1% annual chance flood elevations to provide technical basis for comparison with the effective FEMA flood mapping to support a future submittal of a letter of map revision to FEMA. And in short, what that means is it's an appeal to have FEMA change their maps so that the flood areas would be redefined so they wouldn't have as negative impact. I mean, there are areas of their flood maps that are basically go right over 109.
Yes.
We feel that they did their calculations based on a number of assumptions. They didn't go out and do fresh calculations. These are very old calculations that they crank in certain assumptions, and we think there's a lot of particular aspects to this that they did not take into
We
consideration.
voted on a warrant article, I think it was last town meeting, on FEMA maps, so this is just a continuation of that.
Yeah, the last was the planning board to adopt the maps, which we had to do, because if we didn't, all construction would be in limbo in regards to the maps, so we had to do that. And the only way we can get the maps adjusted is through this process.
So I do have a question. Why do we have to pay for something that we believe they did incorrectly?
That is a great question.
Because we're appealing
We
it.
should contact, we
pay
should
for your own
contact the
appeals.
federal government and ask in FEMA why we're responsible. We have asked those questions, and they told us that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You pay for your appeals, yeah, it doesn't change.
You didn't do your job, but we have to, yeah.
So we have to do the study that they didn't want to do.
Right.
And they just imposed their calculations on us without doing a fresh study.
Would we be reimbursed would we be reimbursed the $120K if they're found to be inaccurate?
That would be nice, but I do not believe so. I think the only remedy we would get is corrected maps.
I think the other thing to look at is this, my assumption, and we can talk when you have it more laid out, but it would produce greater value for the land that we're trying to get the maps adjusted to, because if they're overlaid with a lot of conservation or water, wetlands areas, their value is
no, I
far less.
understand.
Yeah, well, it would make it a lot more difficult to
Right.
place anything
So
on
it
those
might be a way of
properties.
getting one way of getting our $125,000 back is the value of the land goes up.
The value of the development there will provide tax
value,
value and other value to the community in the future. But again, it's a federal process that the only remedy is for the applicant of the appeal has to pay for the cost of the research.
Yep.
Wow. When I'm king.
Yes.
What was the process for actually assessing which areas we believe are incorrect? If we're going through the process for an appeal, I just want to make sure in 2 years we don't say, oh, here was another mistake that we didn't catch the first time.
Right, we did do an initial analysis, which cost much less. It was under $10,000. We did an analysis of the property. And the initial analysis and computations from our local engineers said that there's a high probability that we'd be able to get those maps adjusted if we did the full analysis. But the full analysis is more expensive because the minimum requirements for measurements and so forth is a lot more involved. So, and it has to be done over a period of time. So it could take upwards of a year to do this full process, to get the results, to send them back to FEMA, and to get a decision on updated maps.
Understood.
The good news is we probably be fine for the next 12 to 15 years
Right.
once we get this
So
settled.
we take it there's no other areas in town that we have objections to?
We've looked at all the other changes to the maps, and we believe this is the only one that directly affects properties that either have buildings on them, or we believe we're ready to have any development built on them within the next 10 years.
Yep, okay.
Article 15, this was talked about briefly earlier tonight with 1073 Main Street. That's the old GAF facility. They're in the process of putting up foundations for a very large solar farm. I believe it's 2 megawatts, which is pretty big for solar farms. And it's pretty common for those types of developments to have a pilot agreement with the town. So they have proposed a pilot agreement. Town council is finishing reviewing that, as well as our assessors. And we should have a copy of that for review for the committee within the next week to 2 weeks. Again, it's basically just trying to lock in an estimate of what, because it's a utility, it's kind of a special as far as taxation. So a pilot agreement's a common approach to that.
This is zoned for that?
I believe they've gotten all their approvals to put the solar farm in there. I don't know, I mean, it's allowed to go in there. Whether there was some exemption for the solar panels, I'm not sure, but it was allowed.
And it's on Main Street?
It's in the back, behind GAF, yes. It's on top of the building, and it's in the parking area in back of the building.
Okay.
That large part,
Oh,
some
yeah.
people may know, there's a very large parking area behind it that I'm told that people used to take their kids to learn how to drive back there.
Okay, so it's not a solar farm that's all on its own like we see in some.
No, it's basically covering over a parking lot, an
Okay.
old parking lot.
Yeah.
I think what Mr. Stedman was referencing is that the edge of the parking lot, there were some trees they wanted to take down so that it wouldn't block the sunlight.
Right.
And that's what the state had some issues with, is the plan for taking down the trees and planting smaller trees. But that is the same lot.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Pilot payment in lieu of taxes?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, payment in lieu of
Everybody knew
taxes.
that.
Sometimes I throw out the acronyms.
Listen, I, for years, thought it was like a pilot program or a pilot project. And
Yeah.
then I realized it's not in caps for no reason.
Yeah.
And the pilot programs are, assessors can't under-assess the value of a property, but the select board in the town can determine a reduction in taxes based on some value, bringing development to the town or whatever. Or if it is, like Mike, I think Mike's indicating, it's hard to assess a value because it's a utility. But the assessment always has to be the true assessment on the property. The assessors cannot undervalue a property. The town can release or relinquish taxes on it, but the assessment has to stay the same.
Right, so this is no type of abatement or anything. This is just a different methodology of taxing the property because of the unique nature of it. And it's very common with solar farms across the state.
Yep. With the cell towers, too.
Yes, so Article 16 has been submitted by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. They are requesting some changes to the bylaw. The first, I'll just go through the big changes here. The first request is to remove the word improvement from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, because, first of all, no one has called it that in many years. Usually call it the Capital Planning Committee or the CPC. So they would like to make that change to the name. They're seeking to change or add another ex officio non-voting member to the committee, and that would be the finance director. And for definition of what a capital improvement is, they would like to adjust that. It was originally at 10,000, which is and that was put in place a number of years ago. And they want to change the definition to read, for the purpose of this bylaw, a capital item shall be defined to include major non-recurring assets or projects which cost more than $25,000, are not included in annual operating budgets, have a useful life of at least 5 years, and are purchased or undertaken at intervals of not less than 5 years. Capital items shall include, but are not limited to, equipment, technology, vehicles, buildings, real property, bridges, water, sewer, and stormwater projects. At the discretion of the select board and/or the town administrator, certain items less than $25,000 may be considered by the committee as capital items. So that's basically the change that they're requesting, which I think is pretty reasonable.
A very silly question. Is the name Capital Improvement Planning Committee, does it exist, or is it listed that way anywhere else in?
Bylaws.
Just the bylaw.
But
I
it's
believe.
only in chapter 23.
I believe so.
Just because I know that we have had,
Yeah.
we've seen articles where, well, we changed it here and we're going to correct it here now. a year
Because I
later.
think the capital bylaw came in on the later side, so I don't think it's
So
in
it
the
wasn't
charter
mentioned.
anywhere.
Okay.
I don't, we'd have to do a search for it, and that's an excellent question, just to see if, since the capital committee was put into place, if it has been inserted anywhere else.
To your point, our own committee rules reference it, and I couldn't tell you which way it says. It's
Yeah.
probably CPC, not CIPC, but it does need to be scrubbed.
Yep. Thanks.
The next article is a zoning bylaw change, and I will defer that. I would suggest if you have questions on that, you ask someone from the planning board to come in and meet with you.
Are they not coming in? So they don't want to come in?
So we'd have to, I don't have the article yet, so I cannot.
All right, we'll see the
I
article when
can't
we
give you
finally
with
have it.
detailed information on it. I believe the select board did refer this item back to them, but I don't believe we don't have a final bylaw put
Is
together
it
yet.
restricting it to certain locations? Is that the
Yes, it's certain
purpose?
restrictions. It's basically restricting the location and how it's set up. I know Medway has a large battery storage area, and they
by it
have
all
like
the
a
time.
giant wall around it, and there's other things for noise and other things. So I think it addresses a lot of those issues, and can't be within so many feet of residential houses and things like that.
Okay.
So,
We'll wait to see it, and we'll make a further request when we do see
yeah.
it.
And the last Articles 18, 19, 20, and 21 are all articles you've seen before. And that's basically transferring funds to the Unemployment Insurance Fund, the Chapter 41, Section 111F Injury Leave Indemnity Fund, the other Post-Employment Benefits Fund, and the Stabilization Fund. Does anyone have any questions on what those are, or would like me to talk about any of those?
Please, no.
We've seen them before.
So that is the current. As I mentioned, the select board will be discussing the warrant more at their meeting on April 6th. So I won't really have any big updates for you until your meeting on April 8th.
As we've seen before, and the other newer members have seen it from the fall town meeting, it's a work in progress until it finally gets signed, so.
Yeah, so
there'll
we
be
don't
changes
like to
along.
surprise you with anything at the last minute,
No,
so.
actually, it was me that was surprised that we hadn't seen it yet, because
Yeah.
it's getting late, and we were a month away from, actually weeks away from giving sending it out. So, yeah, it was me that kind of pushed, John
Yep.
to say, hey, come on, we got to get something here.
Yep, so that's the outline, and I think, there's like 4 or 5 articles that need some more information filled in, but
Yep.
that's pretty much the framework of it.
Okay.
All right,
Well,
any other
thank you.
questions on the warrant, draft warrant?
We will have some, but not yet.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Have a good
Appreciate it.
evening.
You too.
You too.
All right, we have minutes approval.
I vote to approve the minutes, from the last meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Heidi says aye as well, so no opposed, 5 in favor. Any old business, new business?
6 in favor.
Oh, 6 in favor, I'm sorry. Yep. Any new business, old business?
Just liaisons.
Liaison,
Yep.
liaison?
We're doing really well at the Council on Aging. We've sold probably 30 teddy bears, bunnies, around town. People have seen them online, seen them here. It's a great fundraiser, and we will continue. We're going to start doing other creatures so that there will be other things for people to be able to purchase, so that we'll be able to continue donating the teddy bears to charities.
Thank you,
Welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right. Heidi, take care.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye, Heidi.
Jody,
Great job.
thank you, Jody, for being on.
Thanks.